She has long jet black hair, yellow skin, yet she represented Canada, standing on the Olympic podium. She displayed an extraordinary talent for sports from a young age. On the Olympic stage, right after she pulled off a stunning comeback to become Olympic champion, her biological parents shamelessly came to find her, hoping to beg for a reunion, yet were cruelly rejected. So what on earth is all this about? Along the way, what exactly has she gone through? Today I will take you to get to know this Chinese-Canadian professional swimmer from Canada, Maggie McNeil. In the year 2000, McNeil was born in a remote small town in Jiangxi province in China. Perhaps it was because the family circumstances were truly too poor, or perhaps it was simply due to a plain preference for sons over daughters. In any case, the biological parents of McNeil regarded the arrival of such a girl as something they despised in every possible way. Not long after she was born, they ruthlessly decided to abandon her. Just like that, McNeil became an abandoned infant. The good news is that in some European and American regions, due to low birth rates, many countries strongly encourage capable and well-off citizens to go abroad to adopt children. Canada is a country deeply influenced by this culture of cross-border adoption. When McNeil was only 1 year old, she caught the eye of a kind-hearted Canadian couple. They soon adopted McNeil and took her back to Canada to raise her. This Canadian couple were in very good financial condition, and they had no prejudice at all against this child from China, treating her as their own. Even later, when McNeil had a younger sister who was 4 years younger than her, their attitude toward McNeil never changed. From childhood, they did their utmost to satisfy all of McNeil's needs. In Canada, McNeil not only enjoyed excellent educational resources, but all of her hobbies and interests also received strong support from her adoptive father and mother. Swimming was one of McNeil's hobbies. When she was 8 years old, McNeil was sent to a professional swimming pool to train. At first, her adoptive parents thought the child was just learning casually out of interest, but before long, the coach told them that McNeil's comprehension and feel for the water were both excellent, and that she had a very high innate talent for the sport of swimming. If she kept training over the long term, she might become a professional athlete. These words led McNeil's adoptive parents to draw up a detailed swimming training plan for their child. They felt that since the child was interested in swimming, they should cultivate it with special attention. So, would McNeil's swimming talent be fully realized? To enable McNeil to train better at the swimming pool, her adoptive parents prepared breakfast for their daughter every morning. Her adoptive father, for 10 years without fail, accompanied his daughter to every single swimming training session, not only driving her there and back every day, but also often supervising her training at her side. Days like this began in 2008 and continued all the way until McNeil was selected for the national team. It can be said that the honors McNeil holds today are connected in countless ways to her adoptive parents. On the other hand, of course, McNeil did not let her adoptive parents' efforts go to waste. Although the training curriculum was tedious and extremely hard, McNeil never complained even once. She focused on expressing herself in the field of swimming, wanting to make swimming the thing that would completely become the pride of her adoptive father and mother. Time moved on to 2019, and McNeil did it. At the World Aquatics Championships in the summer of 2019, McNeil stood confidently by the side of the pool. The event she was about to compete in was the women's 100-meter butterfly final. Butterfly is McNeil's strongest event, and both her coach and her family were eagerly looking forward to McNeil's performance in the race. In the end, with 55.83 seconds, McNeil successfully claimed the first major championship title of her life. Moreover, she also broke the continental record for the Americas, making it a double celebration. What then made swimming fans around the world once again focus on this girl McNeil was the Tokyo Olympics. This was McNeil's first Olympic journey. She dreamed of winning a medal for her country, Canada, and the result turned out just as she had wished. In the women's 100-meter butterfly final at the Tokyo Olympics, the athlete who formed a strong competitive rivalry with McNeil was China's young swimmer Zhang Yufei. The audience were all eagerly anticipating this top-level showdown between a Chinese athlete and a Canadian athlete. The entire race process could truly be described as thrilling. With a time of 55.59 seconds, McNeil beat the Chinese swimmer Zhang Yufei by the razor-thin margin of 0.05 seconds, winning a precious gold medal. This was also the very first gold medal for Canada at the Tokyo Olympics. She instantly became a national hero. After winning the gold medal, McNeil was interviewed by countless media outlets. Facing the cameras, the first people she thanked were her adoptive parents. Without them, there absolutely would not be the person she is today. What no one expected was that after becoming famous in a single race, McNeil also attracted the attention of her biological parents. So, what would they say to the child they once abandoned? When McNeil's biological parents learned that the child they had once abandoned had become an Olympic champion, they immediately found someone to help them get in touch with McNeil. In their words, these biological parents were filled with deep regret, repeatedly repenting for their past mistakes and even shedding tears. These biological parents, who had done wrong back then, even put forward the idea that they hoped McNeil would come back to live by their side. So when faced with such a request, how would McNeil respond? McNeil firmly shook her head and told them that she is now Canadian, and that she absolutely would not go to China to look for these two biological parents. In fact, this is understandable. Back then, they despised McNeil in countless ways and even cruelly abandoned her. Now that McNeil has become famous, whether it is her achievements or her hardships, both have nothing to do with these two people anymore. At the very least, McNeil has no emotional attachment at all to these biological parents. McNeil has had a very unfortunate experience, but fortunately, she encountered people who truly love her. For nearly 20 years, she has received a Canadian cultural education, and China seems to be nothing more than the place where she was born. Besides, for 20 years her biological parents never once inquired about their daughter's situation. Therefore, we should respect McNeil's choice. In fact, abandoned infants have long been a topic of concern in society. McNeil is undoubtedly lucky, but there are many other children who, after being abandoned by their parents, end up living a miserable life. We hope that every child can have parents who truly love them, and we believe that in the future the number of abandoned infants will become smaller and smaller.
In the end, the most painful part of this whole matter is not swimming, not the gold medal, but those who once ruthlessly threw away their child now try to be parents again after she has achieved great success. Is this affection, or is it interest? Everyone has their own answer in their heart. Some people believe that biological parents are not a kind of identity card that you can take back and use whenever you like. The moment you abandon her, you had already lost that qualification. What is even more ironic is that if she were not an Olympic champion, but just an ordinary person, would these biological parents still have appeared? Perhaps no one can say for sure. By contrast, the ones who truly walked with her through the mud were that Canadian couple. They have no blood tie with her, yet they gave her all their love, time, patience, and respect. That is what is truly called a family. That is what is truly called parents. McNeil's refusal may seem cold, but it is her greatest protection over the past 20 years, and it is also a sentence spoken on behalf of countless abandoned children. You could choose not to want me, but I also have the right not to look back. So, what do you think is the biggest reason why McNeil was able to achieve success?